Banditos, nothing's easier than fighting 200 blind, shocked, and damaged, debuffed NPCs. And that's exactly what the status effect crowd control team support build does. It makes legendary difficulty as easy as it can get, with unlimited blind, EMPs, and shock on demand, each of which debuff and damage the enemy over time. While that's happening, you're dishing out mega bonus armor to your team, making you the ultimate wingman. This build has the best of year 5 season 1, and today I bring it to you. Hit like if unique and effective builds are for you. Comment wingman down below to support the channel.
Ain't too many kids playing with us. Situation is fight one. What's gonna do? Why go run?
I have a long history of making legendary team support builds. You have those that are singularly focused on a task such as tanking, healing, or status effects. Then you have those that provide support in more than one way. I call these wingman builds. The point of a wingman build is to provide your team the type of support to promote confidence and more aggressive gameplay to clear legendary checkpoints quickly while being a contributing team member on the front lines with your mates. And there's nothing better than turning your team into tanks without sacrificing any damage, decreasing enemies' health pool, and neutralizing their tech, heals, and ability to even shoot back. So let's take a look at the build. So here is the latest super blind wingman build, and it's actually very easy to make and farm. And the build is actually centered on the blinder firefly, so let's start there. So as you can see, I have skill haste, blind effect duration, and more max targets, and this is a skill tier 4 firefly. And we'll talk about why it's a skill tier 4 and not a tier 6 a little bit later, but this is what I want you to focus on. So the cooldown is 22 seconds. The blind duration is 13 seconds. That means the net cooldown is 9 seconds. What we have here is the chess piece talent called Tag Team. So the last enemy you have damaged with the skill is marked, dealing weapon damage to that enemy, consumes the mark, and reduces active cooldowns by 6 seconds. That means the net cooldown on this firefly is going to be 3 seconds. So that's right. So basically no cooldown. And on the EMP sticky bomb, I have skill haste and blast radius. It's got a 13-second cooldown with a duration of 25 seconds. So that's a negative cooldown there. And we're going to shave 6 seconds off of that cooldown as well, at least 6 seconds. That means you're going to have basically unlimited EMPs, which is perfect for legendary. So this is our damage skill, actually. The EMP damages legendary NPCs and their tech. And I'll show you the mechanics of this build in a while, but let's go through the build first. So basically the formula of the build is going to be status effects, skill haste, skill tiers, and armor. Notice the build has 1.5 million armor. There's a reason for that. I don't just want to be tanky. That's for my team, and that's because we're dishing out mega bonus armor to our team. More on that in a sec. So the chest piece is Golan for status effects, and it comes with an armor core, so this should be easy to farm. That's how it comes by default. And status effects and skill haste with the skill haste mod, and then Tag Team, which of course shaves 6 seconds off of the cooldowns, and it only has a cooldown of 4 seconds, so you can use this as much as you like. The gloves are a one-piece Hannah for 10% skill haste. I have armor on this one, status effects, and skill haste. So this is the most unique piece on the build. It normally comes with a skill tier. I actually farmed this in one day, just doing a couple of control points, so it came very easy. You could probably craft it just as easily as well, but I wanted to have 1.5 million armor, and so that needed to be an armor core. All right, the holster is a standard Brazos, not the Picaro, okay? So this is giving us a skill haste and skill tier, so we're using both of those. And then we got armor, skill haste, and status effects. Hey Banditos, the community we have built together wouldn't have been possible without you. So as a thank you for supporting my channel and the community, I'm bringing you the hookup on member perks, including even more Division 2 content and the celebrated gaming music playlists. If you're not part of Texas Players Club, click the join button below. And then the knee pads look exactly the same. So armor, skill haste, and status effects. It's our second piece of Brazos. As you can see there on the bottom left, we have 4 skill tiers on the build. Now, when you have the pistol, you can push that to 5, but I'm not really needing that or using it. The backpack is the named Electrique Lavoisier, and this is giving us 10% status effects. It comes with a skill tier. And then I have status effects and skill haste, and I put protection from elites on this one, and that allows me to get a little bit closer to those stingers coming off of the legendary Chungas. But you can also put skill haste here also, but you don't really need it. Either way, whatever you prefer. And so this is coming with perfect galvanize. This is how we're dishing out all of that bonus armor to the enemies. So we have blind, ensnare, confuse, or shock. We're actually using all of those throughout the entire control point. Not confused, but blind, ensnare, and shock. So applying blind, ensnare, or shock to an enemy grants 50% of your armor as bonus armor. So that's 750,000 in bonus armor to your teammates and yourself if you're within 30 meters of the enemy, and that lasts for 10 seconds. So that's amazing bonus armor. So you're giving it to yourself. Think about that. And it's constant. This is constantly happening. So that's pushing us to 2.25 million in armor on this build. And that's what you're running around with all the time. And you're turning your team into a tank, a super tank. So they're constantly getting that too. And so watch the gameplay. Throughout the entire gameplay, these guys are always getting bonus armor. So they're feeling good. All right, the mask I've added is the Vial mask, okay? And so this is the exotic Vial mask. It has status effects, hazard protection, and skill haste. I wish we didn't have the hazard protection, but that's okay. Helps against those chungas. And then toxic delivery. So status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. So you're basically weakening the enemy, or in other words, taking off some of their armor. So total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade and increased by status effect attributes. And we have maxed out the status effect attributes on this build. And so if you look at our concussion grenade, we're at 1.4 million. So the debuff is half of that. So this is really cool because we are constantly dishing out status effects. There's actually 3 skills on this build if you think about it. The third skill is actually the primary weapon, and this one's really cool. So this is the St. Elmo's Engine Exotic Assault Rifle, brand new with Season 1, Year 5. It's got a 20% crit damage mod, 20% weapon handling, 20% crit chance, and a large mag. So we're really only playing into the large mag and handling here. We don't really care about the crits because we're using this like a skill. So it's got very large 70 round mag. I have health damage to targets out of cover, 1.8 second reload. And then the talent is saying at 100 stacks, you can get a full mag of shock ammo. And so once you earn your shock ammo, you use it sparingly to shock the enemies. And that's what's activating the backpack talent Galvanize consistently. So you're constantly shocking the enemies. And so that's what you want to do, is just think through your ammo, earn it, and then use it sparingly. You got 70 different enemies you can shock with that thing. 70 different shock. It lasts quite a while. And so I cycle through that ammo as much as it makes sense per checkpoint, but that makes things a lot easier when you run into that checkpoint already having shock ammo. And so you'll see that in the gameplay. We'll burst through the doors. I'll shock everybody, blind them, EMP them. So they're blind, deaf, and dumb basically. So notice I'm running Technician. What's interesting about that is you also have the option of running Survivalist, and that's gonna give you 10% more damage for your teammates when you status affect an enemy, which is also very helpful. And you also get some fire grenades with that too. But for this build, I needed the skill tier so that we can have that 4 skill tiers there to make these skills viable. So this build is perfectly imbalanced between armor and skill tiers. So I suggest going with Technician. The backup, I have the shotgun, but you know, whatever, use whatever. I don't have the right talent on this, but I would recommend something like Vindictive or Perpetuation. And then the pistol is the TDI card for the extra skill tier. And I have Perpetuation on this also. Okay, let me show you how this bad boy works. Notice, I want you to notice here that I have skill haste disabled. So this is real-time skill haste on the build. So I'm going to show you how to keep enemies permanently blind. What you do is you blind the enemy. So as you can see, the enemy's blind, right? And then you hit him with the EMP, all right? And detonate it, and then you're gonna see this red marker. Usually it's on the enemy right in front of you, and you mark that, and then you're gonna get your blind again, right? See, that's the blind's back, so now I can blind them again. So yeah, you can keep the enemies in a permanent status effect. And that's the point of this build, is that an amazing frequency and duration of your status effects. And so as you can see, by the time they come out of blind, you can blind them again and keep them in that permanent state of blind. And that's what Tag Team is doing. And then you have the shock ammo, and that's what I mean by the third status effect. So you can keep an enemy under a status effect so they can basically not shoot at your team. So the shock is going to keep them from shooting. And then you blind them, right? And then you EMP them. And then as soon as he comes out of blind, shock him. Just one bullet, right? So don't waste ammo. Blind him again. EMP him, and that's gonna get you back your tag team. That's gonna get you back your blinder. Shock him. But that's what I'm saying, your tag team and your cooldowns together make an amazing infinity loop of permanent status effect. And then just shock them. And so when you enter a room, what I recommend doing is first throwing out your blinder, okay, and getting them blind, hitting them with your EMP so they can't put down any healing stations, and then shock them all, and then your allies are gonna mow them over from there. So pretty easy to use. You'll get the sequence down or whatever works best for you in what order. And that might change depending on the room and what enemy is standing in front of you first. Maybe it's a Warhound, maybe it's a tank, maybe it's a Chunga, who knows? But it tends to stand at getting out the blinder as fast as possible is the best way, and that's because it's got the longer of the cooldowns. But remember, it's not that long, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, but you know, I was quite impressed with this build, not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I created the Infinity Blind back in the day, and that's sort of what this concept is based off of. So the Infinity Blind was the same concept, which is to have infinite loop of blind and EMP on whatever, a group or a singular enemy, whether that's a Chunga or a boss. And where that came from is that back in the day, we're talking like title update, somewhere around like TU8 or TU7, somewhere like that. You know, the Blinder Firefly with Riot Foam was like the ultimate crowd control build for Legendary, and that's what everybody was using. It was built with high-end gear, and that's before Eclipse. And then the devs nerfed the Firefly and the Riot Foam technically, but the Firefly basically got nerfed to the ground, and they did that by giving it such a long duration that it made it real difficult to throw back-to-back Fireflies. So later in TU10, when they gave us the ability to do improvised gear, I sought out to make a Firefly build that was like the old school Firefly builds, where we can permanently disable legendary enemies. And I was able to accomplish that, and then later improved upon it more and more over the seasons, and found out that, you know, tag team does so much of the heavy lifting. I didn't need as much skill haste as I thought I did. And so away went the improvised pieces. And here we are now in year 5, season 1, and they brought us this amazing new backpack and Electrique with 4 more status effects to complement my Golem and my Hannah Yu. And then of course we got the Brazos, which is relatively new too. So I feel like we got this whole new, on a whole nother level, Wingman build / Infinity Blind build. So it kind of meshed those two things together. And for the first time, we have an Infinity Blind build with 1.5 million in armor that's dishing out bonus armor. That third skill, which is actually the assault rifle, is absolutely amazing. You guys, I know a lot of you are using the St. Elmo's engine on like a striker and using it as your primary weapon or something like that. And you know, it's cool. It works out there, you know, in a nice way. But that shock ammo is very, very powerful. And if you can use that shock ammo more strategically, like you see here in these Wingman status effect builds for crowd control, it's absolutely amazing. When you come across those Chungas and you just hold them still so your team can DPS them down, it's amazing. And I am actually preferring the St. Elmo Exotic as more of a stun weapon than a DPS weapon. I think that that shock ammo is really powerful. I mean, if the Scorpio had 100% shock ammo, I'd be using it a lot more. But it doesn't, and the St. Elmo does. And so when you earn that ammo, I mean, you got 70 rounds on demand shock. It's absolutely amazing for crowd control, and it makes it basically a third skill, and that's how we're using it on this build. And that makes every wave extremely easy for me and my team, and dishing out that bonus armor. So, you know, you're gonna really, really, really love it. Hopefully you have that gun. If you don't, hurry up and finish your rewards track so you can add it to this build. This explosive sniper build is unique on a whole nother level. Check it out.
Follow me.